All right, welcome back to the Low Sodium Gaming Podcast. We're on episode 5. I'm Kris. This is Rob.
Hey guys, what's up? And we are going to be talking about a pretty controversial topic, which is about video game review bias, specifically for IGN, because I am on the side that IGN doesn't deserve all the flack it gets for its reviews, but I know Kris does.
Yeah, they do. They just
All right.
they do. I know like not every mistake should be thrown at everybody that works there, but at the same time, they keep it keeps happening.
So what examples do you have?
So, 2018 um there was a Dead Cells review. Pull up this guy's name real quick. So essentially, the reviewer was plagiarizing a smaller channel's Dead Cells review. He basically took it word from the smaller channel. IGN later pulled it, but they later pulled it and said they take plagiarism very seriously. But it took a long time for it to happen. This guy's name was Mucin. I can't
hmm
Miucin.
I remember he was young and he was an idiot. I know that he
Yeah,
had his own YouTube channel prior to that happening, and it wasn't the first time he's done it.
yeah, that
That's
too.
that
That
was my
too.
understanding.
So like, you have incidents like that, or you have where when they reviewed Resident Evil 2 and
hmm
the reviewer didn't play the other half of the game. He thought that Claire's playthrough was exactly the same as Leon's, blatantly kind of skipping over the instructions on how to start the second run and how to select it, where he just kind of clicked OK, not really paying attention, and that
hmm
affected his review score. Um, so like I get it, like the workloads and stuff, the demand to get that review out and have it first to get those clicks, but at the same time, you know, you get paid to do this, and people make their buying decisions and stuff off that. You're kind of seen as like a trusted source.
No, actually, I actually agree with you on those things. I don't agree with the some of the reviews that they've done. And I have another one that that really got me upset from IGN was I'm not sure if you ever saw Luke Cage season 2.
Yeah,
So Luke Cage season 2, I thought that it was a better series overall than the season 1. And the reason is because I thought in season 1 they killed off the main villain too fast.
yeah,
And I thought that main villain was an amazing actor and was amazing for the series. Then they switch it up to somebody else, and I thought it was a joke, especially at that ending in season 1 where he's wearing that costume. Remember that, the villain?
yeah, yeah,
It got ridiculous. But I thought Bushmaster for season 2 was so good. He was such a good actor, and the relationship that he had with Luke Cage was really good too. So when I saw the season before I read the review, when I saw the review, the guy gave it a 4 out of 10. It's like, what is going on? Like, and mind you, I checked Luke Cage season 1 and it got a better review. I think it got like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It got me really upset at IGN. It really did. But I later I later started listening to people that had been done with IGN, and they had their own YouTube channels, and they were talking about video game review bias. And one of the things that they were saying is that when this person was working in IGN, the way that IGN did it is that they gave off a list of all the video games that are supposed to be reviewed or that have to be reviewed.
yeah,
And out of that list, people can pick and choose what they want to review. Sometimes, like if it's a big game like God of War, like you would, whoever it is, come first serve, right? And like sometimes it was hard to get those.
yeah,
Other people, like this person was saying, that sometimes they bought like bit the bullet and just did a review that they didn't want to do, but they played it. They try to see like the pros and cons in the video game, and they try to do the review for it. So when I'm listening to how they do the reviews, like, and it's they give that list and they let the reviewer choose which game do they want to review. I started seeing that with also the pressures of doing everything else uh, other than like the review itself. I did see like there were some issues with it's like the company in general, not necessarily the reviews themselves. And as I was talking to you prior to this, I was thinking too, like I think that a good way to do this instead of having a like this tinge of bias, it's actually having another person do the review and within the company, not just let one person review it. So it puts the other person in check too, and like they would give a score out, and like I think that would have definitely helped with Luke Cage, season two. You know, like that guy gave it a 4 out of 10. I really hope that somebody else would have reviewed it and like seen that there's a quality in there and maybe do an average of that. But just one reviewer, I don't think it's enough. And I at the same time, I also see that IGN is changing, and I also every time that I do read their review, it seemed pretty accurate. It's like I know that you talked about Resident Evil 2, but they went again and did Resident Evil 3, and I completely agree with that review. Like they gave it a 9 out of 10,
Yeah.
and it was a higher review than GameSpot. GameSpot gave it a 6 out of 10. GameSpot said it was too short. I thought it was perfect for me. Like especially for a person that works every day, like getting to play and enjoy a story over a weekend. I thought that was fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's still value in that, right? Like I do like so I do think IGN has its place, right? I just don't think that I don't think they should be the go-to source for reviews, right? And this goes for IGN, GameSpot, stuff like that. Um, when you're looking at it, like I have several different YouTubers that I hop into. I think what you watch Skill Up, ACG.
yeah.
I watch some
I,
smaller YouTubers and stuff like that. I watch people for different genres, and so like if I'm watching a guy that really plays first person shooters all the time, I'm not gonna trust his review on Elden Ring, right? So that kind of you bring that up on like you have this list and they kind of pick out what they want, and some people get the bottom of the totem pole and they don't get the review what they want, right? Which is an okay system, you know, if you're just trying to hurry up and have this, and it's been working, but you have things fall through the cracks like Resident Evil 2, right?
yes.
But I feel like there are places that they have access to the gaming industry to provide like those previews, those interviews, and all that stuff. They can do deep dives. They can get with the developers to see their reactions to the speed runs and stuff like that. I think that's where their place is, right? Like to provide all this other stuff that like the normal YouTuber the can't get to, that they have access to. Now, I still think like they're going to stay in the review game, right? And like my opinion on that isn't going to change. Like, isn't going to change that. They're not going to drop that part of their business. But I don't go like me personally. I don't go to big outlets anymore to get their opinion on a game. I don't go to their reviews. I think the biggest one I go to now is X Play.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So like for me, like reviews are more like the news. So like in the news, in order to get an accurate depiction of what's going on, you go to liberal sites and you also go to conservative sites to just get a well-rounded understanding of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
With the review, for me it's the same thing. Like I don't necessarily go to like these smaller YouTubers, but I do go to 5 or 6 reviews before I make a decision. And I like and if I hear something that I really like about them, that's consistent on all the reviews, that would convince me to get it. So like for example, the Lego Star Wars game that came out, I would have bought that in a heartbeat. But and it's been getting good reviews left and right. But ACG and I think it was Jake Baldino from GameRanks, they both said that like there gets a point where it just gets boring. You know, like it's a
Mhm.
long game, and then like after a while, it just gets repetitive. So like that in itself, that has stopped me from getting it full price.
Yeah.
So like you know like those things are like the clickers, that the things that I hesitate on buying. Like if it gets too repetitive, I'm like, all right, that's not my game. But going back to IGN, it's like I do think that it's funny because people hate it, right? People hate IGN, but for some reason, it's thriving. I honestly think it's for your normal person like me. Like it serves its purpose. I
You're not normal.
all
You're in too deep to be normal, man.
right. So like
But yeah, I get what you're saying. My
yeah.
I think, and again, there are different levels. Now I know this isn't IGN, right? This is GameSpot. But have you heard of Jeff Gersman?
No, I haven't. What
Okay, so
happened?
he's the former editorial director for GameSpot. He branched off and did wound up founding Giant Bomb with a few other people. Basically, when Kane and Lynch 2 came out, he had a bad review for it, right? He didn't like the game. You know, this guy's been in the gaming industry for a while, you know, since the 90s and stuff like that. So, you know, he had the street cred for it, whatever you want to call it. He had the time to have a good review or whatever. Problem was that there was Kane and Lynch ads all over GameSpot at the time. So his bad review really didn't sit well with the fact that they were advertising the hell out of Kane and Lynch on the website. Now, they said GameSpot came out and said they didn't let him go because of that, but he was let go shortly after that. And I'm sorry, but that sounds a little, suspicious, right? And so that kind of brings up the
Okay,
point.
so
Uh,
you're I see where you're getting at. So that's
yeah.
another issue that IGN and GameSpot is always fighting. It's like they're arguing always that these companies do not affect their video game reviews. And
And
I
you can say that all day, but if you're receiving and again, I don't go to their site, so I don't like. I know that they do advertise, right? But I haven't been to their site in years, so I don't know if they're still advertising. Hell, I can go here right now, but if they're still taking advertising dollars, that is going to compromise in some way, you know, what you show, or they might give a good review to maintain access. Like I know certain outlets have said like they've done a bad review or like they were critical of something and they've lost access to, review copies and things like that. So to maintain those good relationships, they kind of have to be political in their reviews. They have to, sweeten it up a little bit.
I mean I sometimes I see IGN like super critical on some of these games.
Yeah.
And it's not, and then you see like the whole website is promoting the game. I remember like Morbius. Morbius, Morbius got destroyed by IGN, completely destroyed. I think it got like a 4 or 3 out of 10. And like you see at the IGN website, it was filled with Morbius stuff. They even had an interview with Jared Leto in
Uh-huh.
IGN after the review was published. So it's so like that might have been true. That might have been true at the beginning, but I think the people caught on, and I think they're very careful in how to proceed with that.
so
I
I
that's where ACG comes into play. ACG does not like getting any advertisements because he's like, I want to make sure that people understand that like this is
he's trying to be as
unbiased as possible.
unbiased as possible.
Yeah.
and I get that. And there is a way to work yourself back up. I do watch some ITN content, IGN content, right? Like I said, they have access to the industry that like a normal YouTuber can't get, right? Because they've been in this game for a long time. And I really think that's where they shine. And I think that's where they should leverage, having those panels talking about video games and all this other stuff, right? But it's like the review system seems compromised, and I think that's where it starts to, people start to lose trust in that.
You know what got me thinking about this topic was Persona 5.
Uh huh.
Because like the first time we talked about Persona 5, I think it was in the most overrated games, and I fell for the Kool-Aid. GameSpot, IGN all gave him 10 out of 10s. And that really got me super upset because that game does not deserve a 10 out of 10. But then I started thinking, and that this is where I also started giving it a little bit more credit, is like these games are being reviewed by people that love these games.
Yeah.
So like that love that they have, it translates in their review. Now that is biased, completely biased, because they love it. Like I don't care if it's kind of boring, I'm still gonna give it a 10 out of 10 because I want it to succeed. I thought it was an amazing game. I was like, oh
True.
man.
True. And I guess that system that were you talking before, where like if they doubled up on it and like you had a dissenting opinion or something like that. But
Oh my
again,
god.
we're talking about this corporation, and you have deadlines, and you have to push this stuff out, and you can't take that manpower away from. If I double up on Persona 5, then we miss another game, right? And we don't get a review out. So like I see it from their perspective as to why that doesn't go. I really think you should have people like, for X Play, they brought in a lot of new people, right? And the Black Hokage, I forget the other two's names off the top of my head, and that's Frost and the other dude, Gerard, I think. But TBH is, he calls himself the shooter guy, and he loves shooters, right? And he gets all into them, and they will definitely have him do those, right, and have his opinion on those. They do like talks and everything afterwards, but they also get his opinion on other games, right? Like if he's playing, because he plays a ton of stuff, but he's really good with shooters, and they do that with all of them. They rotate that around, so there isn't a complete bias, right? Like if I love shooters, like I might love a series, like I love Dark Souls, right?
Hmm.
It wouldn't be completely fair to give me Elden Ring to review.
Mm.
So
No,
like being able to move that around, being able to move that around, the whole crew gives it a fairer shot to be reviewed fairly, rather than having to double up or anything like that. I think it should
yeah,
be assigned. I don't think people should be picking what they want to review. I think you should assign that. Like if you're like, "Hey, I like RPGs and tactical games," right? I'm going to assign you things like that, and then I'm going to hit you with something different.
it's true. Okay, so you're saying like assign them that, and then the next one is something different.
Yeah, pretty
Okay,
much.
okay, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, it's for Elden Ring, for example. Like I was like the person that was doing the YouTube channel talked about Elden Ring too, and what the person said was that in it would be unfair if you would put so like they put in a person that loves the Dark Souls series to review Elden Ring, and that's why it got such a high score.
Uh-huh.
It it would have been unfair for someone that doesn't have any experience in Dark Souls. Like point taken, doesn't have any experience in Dark Souls. That doesn't mean that they won't like it. Doesn't have any experience. Put them in and playing Elden Ring, they would have had a completely different experience. It would have been a frustrating one, and that would have affected their rating. So what this person was trying to say is that a lot of the times these reviews are meant for people that actually enjoy these games,
Yeah, they
and
they are. They definitely are.
instead of being for the broad spectrum. and that's where I got confused when I drank the Kool-Aid when it came to Persona 5. Yeah,
You hate that game.
I hate it. I hate it with a passion. Yeah, and but yeah, I also like there's also I also sometimes get upset with some reviewers because they just want to be different. So like I remember there was an issue with Grand Theft Auto 5, and Grand Theft Auto 5 got a 10 out of 10 in almost every gaming website. People that reviewed it, YouTube,
Hmm.
small YouTube channels. It was. I think it's still like one of the
It's
best games of all time.
still one of the best open world games, and the, my it doesn't to me it doesn't deserve a 10 out of 10. Um,
Uh, I
solely based on part of the map, like the utilization of the map isn't the best, but that's me looking back on it. The when I first played it, I was all about it. I was all about that 10 out of 10. But yeah,
yeah, so like the 10 out of 10, so like the 10 out of 10 also is it's not like there's obviously the game isn't perfect, right? But
yeah,
the
yeah.
whole experience that you have from the beginning to end, when you look back at it, it's like, wow, that was a lot of fun. And that's why I think it deserves a 10 out of 10. It's yeah, it might have its issues, but the experience itself, yeah, that was definitely a plus. Now, I had an issue when IGN got a 10 out of 10, and then I went to GameSpot, and GameSpot gave it a 9 out of 10. And the reason why they gave him a 9 out of 10, it was for political reasons, because it was misogynistic,
Hmm.
and I didn't understand why the game would be reviewed in that manner. It should have been reviewed for what it was. It was a
Hmm.
satire. It was a satire that was like making fun of the United States and the current era in 2013. But
Yeah,
this person mistook it, and it's like it was misogynistic. And that's why it was a great game, fantastic,
yeah.
everything. But I'm gonna take a point off because I thought it was misogynistic. I'm like, I don't
And
know how
I
I feel
think
about that.
if like your first time really coming into um Grand Theft Auto was Grand Theft Auto 4, right? And it had like this more like the satire was still there, right? Like it was still ridiculous, but there was like this it wasn't as flamboyantly absurd as the rest of the series. It was more grounded, it was gritty. It
Are you talking about four?
4, yeah, I'm talking about 4.
Four, yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're first coming and then you get into to 5 and you're thinking it's still like cuz Nico isn't rich by the end of that story, right?
no,
Nico's
that,
well
that is,
off, but he's not rich, right?
yeah.
And you go from that and it's kind of the interactions seem more real than what they would be. It didn't seem like the other ones felt like a movie or in set in like a movie type universe. 4 did, but like it felt different than the rest of those. So if you're going from 4 into 5, I could see like, oh well, they took this stance and blah 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 whatever, not really realizing that this is a critique on American culture. And
Hmm.
like, so if you saw this dude was a misogynist and they were portraying those they were putting out those traits and stuff like that, then those were the writers making those critiques on America. So I mean, that's their misunderstanding, right?
I know
Like
that. Like I
that's
know
yeah.
GameSpot got a lot of flack. GameSpot got
But
so much flack.
it but I will say this, and I will concede this point, right? There are a lot of fanboys out there.
Oh my God, yes.
There are tons of
Eh,
fanboys out there, and they are willing to send death threats and leave dislikes and horrible comments in the YouTube section because you gave their game a 9 out of 10 rather than a 10 out of 10. Which
yeah,
a really to me, there's not much difference.
there isn't. There isn't.
There's not much difference in that. It's not like I gave, like if like I don't review games, I'm whatever, and I'm not big enough for people to even care, right? But it's not like I gave it a 2 out of 10. Like it's not like I sat here and said like this is the worst thing that ever happened. Like they shouldn't have even wasted their time, right? Like that's how they take it. Like like when people say, "Hey, this is an okay game," it's got some major problems or whatever, and they give it a 7 out of 10 or whatever, or they don't give it that high score, and people are like, you're wrong, you're paid shill. And like I see this for smaller channels, like smaller deals. Oh, you took money. uh you're completely biased. And these are, like, it's not worth, paying attention to. But it's a hard line to walk, because these people could potentially be your consumer base, and you're trying to, again, they're in this for money. People love what they do, but they have to make the dollar, right?
Yeah, they do.
So, they have to be careful with how they word things, how they score things. They don't want to, like, sometimes you have to make the public mad, but the other times you got to kind of maintain your working relationship with the companies that you're reviewing these games for. So I get it. It just sucks to be in that position.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And man, those fanboys really get me
Oh
upset,
God,
man.
fanboys suck.
Yeah, fanboys get me so
Yo,
upset. It's like Jesus.
it's so
Like,
hard. Like, I'm really into the MCU. I love it. And like, I take things as they're presented, right? Like, I don't, because I never really had a chance to get into the comic books when I was younger. These, like, I might be familiar with characters, but these are whole new experiences for me. And then you'll have, like, I'm going online, or I'm watching a video and I'm reading comments, or I'm on Reddit and I'm in a thread about it, and somebody be like, like, they did this and this wrong, and it's like, bro, but it was still good. Like, there's people out there that hate, like, Moon Knight is out right now, and people freaking hate Moon Knight because of the pacing, and I'm like, but the pacing was fine. It's just they were trying to tell a different story. They're like, oh, everything didn't wrap up, but it's like, they. I hope they're planning seasons. It looks like they're planning another season. Like, I'm sorry, I'm ranting on MCU things. We get back to.
no, no, and fanboys exist everywhere, right? So like in video games and Star Wars and the MCU, it gets ridiculous, and unfortunately, it also affects, like like how we enjoy video games. Sometimes it gets too toxic. So like sometimes I respect what GameSpot is, or not GameSpot, Xbox is doing. Like the head person in there, Phil Spencer, I believe his name
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
He's come out and said that like the thing that is the most toxic about this is like that make believe super competition that PlayStation and Xbox has. It's like you should be enjoying video games just because, not because like this game is better on the PlayStation than it is on the Xbox or vice versa. It gets ridiculous. So
yeah,
like I I I now that you talk about it, like I think the GameSpot got too much flack on that bad review that they had
yeah,
for
yeah.
GTA.
They did, they did. And again, like, that's where I'm willing to concede on that, right? Like, things aren't as bad as, like, those type of people like to portray. Not with the reviewing system. I do think, again, I think IGN, and they lean into it. They lean into the access that they have, and that's why they're still. I think that's why they're still super relevant, right? I think that's why they still get the views that they do, and they're still in business. Is because they really lean into the access that they have. They do provide that deeper look into game development, or bringing out those trailers for both games and movies. And so I just the scored review is for people that don't like to read, and they just want to
Yeah.
see if the game that they like, or the franchise that they like, got a decent one.
And I actually I agree with that, man. Not everybody has a lot of time to read. So like I know some people like they like they put their heart and effort just not to put a review number into it. But sometimes like I see a Game Informer review, like it's so long, I just go I scroll all the way down to see what's the grade. I like the pros and cons that they put on too, so I enjoy that.
I
Where
think
overall,
SkillUp has a really good method where he's like, "Hey, I recommend this game," right? And he'll have a picture of the thing. Like right now, I'm looking at a thumbnail where he's like, "I do not recommend Ghostwire Tokyo." Right, and
Uh,
so you automatically know what his thoughts are before you
yeah,
even click the video, and so
yeah,
boom, you click the video, and he'll tell you why.
yeah.
And I think that that's effective, right? So yeah, I just it should be there. I think the reviews are always going to be there. I just the hate that they do get. I don't know if it's still deserved. Like people don't hate on EA as much as they used to. Um, it's shifted to Ubisoft, which they absolutely deserve all the hate they get. Um,
EA has stayed quiet. That's the thing. EA hasn't
yeah,
come out with a
they
lot
they
of
they've been pretty
franchises.
quiet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've been pretty quiet. That's the only reason why the hate hasn't. But like, as soon as EA comes out with a new franchise or something that is like related to them, like, don't worry, it'll start. It'll definitely start. Uh, but
But with
yeah,
that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I think you did get me to like soften up on them a little bit. Uh, let me see it from their side.
hmm dude, like I have to say, like, I think the person that changed my mind completely was Ryan McCaffrey.
Hmm.
He's an IGN employee. He's actually in charge of the Xbox podcast. The guy is so humble, man. Like he so they sometimes do segments between Sony and Xbox. It's like
Hmm.
what is the state of Xbox and Sony, and you have a moderator, and both of them they treat each other with such respect, and like sometimes like they'll concede like, yeah, you had a good point, like PlayStation is failed in this one, or Xbox is not doing so well in this one thing. Like they start saying like, I would like to see on this side what they would do in order to make the system better. And I really enjoy that because I think there's so much vitriol between the competition, uh, between Xbox and Sony, and those two people with the moderator involved and Ryan McCaffrey being such a good lighthearted guy. Like
Hmm.
he's super Xbox, but at the same time he's like, hey, I played this game on PlayStation. I thought that was an amazing game.
Yeah,
Uh,
I really think like I have some friends that are kind of like that, right? They're like F Sony, Xbox for life, right? And the way I've always looked at it is that I want to play as much as I can.
mhm.
So you know, whatever.
Yeah.
If I can buy it, I'm gonna buy it. So right now, I'm not like I haven't been able to get like an Xbox X or PS5 yet, but I've for generations I've bought both, or I've bought the original Xbox. I had a PlayStation 2, had a PlayStation 3 and
Mhm.
a PS4. Like I've had all that, all the Xboxes, the 360, the one, and I'm not gonna buy an X only because I have a PC and I can get Game Pass and I can get the games that they put out.
Mhm.
So that's my reasoning behind it. I just if I see something interesting, I don't want to be limited by not having the
Yeah.
console, except for anything on Nintendo. I ain't buying that shit.
Uh, I got it too. I got Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox. I appreciate old games. I that's my take on it. Like whichever systems offers the specific game, I'll definitely. And I think that they're good games. I'll definitely get it. I don't want to be limited by just competing with another system and being like, oh, why does that why does that video game system have this other game that's coming out?
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. But with that, I think we're gonna cut it a little bit short because we want to make sure that like it isn't the podcast isn't too long.
Yeah, thanks for listening. If you liked it, like it. If you didn't, hit the dislike button. Leave a comment if you think any of our views are stupid or you don't agree, or maybe you do agree. Just let us know, and we'll try and catch up. Well, we'll catch y'all next week
Hmm
on our next topic. What or do we have a topic yet? I don't think we have a topic yet.
We'll talk. We'll talk after this. All right, guys. Take care.
Later.